I felt like I didn't belong until I found my inner truth. Hi, my name is Mei, and I am your host of this podcast. I want to invite you on this spiritual journey to find love, acceptance, inner truth, and a sense of belonging, in spite of a multicultural background. Let's get together and overcome our issues with labels and stop trying to fit in boxes that were not made for us. Let's stop looking at what makes us different and see what brings us together without losing our authenticity. If you like the podcast, please give it a 5-star rating. This will give more people the opportunity to find us, or share it with someone who will benefit of it. In today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Meilin Ehlke, and I'm so happy to share this interview with you guys because we talked about how it was for her to grow up a little bit different than everybody else, and also how we can overcome the walls that we have of prejudice, how we have those, thoughts about how others are supposed to be, and how we can look past those and actually see the beauty in our diversity and in our being different. So yeah, I hope you have as much fun with this interview as I had. So let's just dive right into this. Have fun. Servus everybody, and welcome to another wonderful interview episode here at Multicultural Spiritually Belonging to the Stars. I'm so happy because today I will be able to interview a dear friend of mine. For me, she's like my starseed sister, and I'm so happy. Meilin Ehlke, welcome to today's episode.
Oh, thank you for having me, May, and hello everyone.
I wanted to have you here as well because you, for me, are also one of those mixys, like I like to call them. We're all intertwined with all the multicultural parts. The interesting part about you is that not only having the background, you also have a name that actually comes from a different culture, I would say, as well. So can you tell me what's your cultural background? Like, where are your parents from? Where were you born? And where were you raised?
Oh, long story. I'll try to make it narrow. So I was born in Germany. Yeah. And my dad's American and my mom is German. The funny story is he was here, came over to Germany through the Air Force. And my mom is from East Germany, and she escaped 3 days after she was 18. And so I have more or less two rebels as parents. And I remember even my dad, when he was when together with my mother, he had to leave the decoding in the military and had to wash dishes. Because they thought my mom was a spy, because at that time almost no one was able to escape. So and I think that fed me in a way, even though my dad is in German American, comes from Wisconsin in the US. But that going on anyway and believing in one each other and believing in themselves, I think that was my big driver and always my backbone in life. And I'm someone who always ran for freedom. I would climb over the fence when I was little. When we would go for walks, I would always we're off the path. Yeah. And I would just always come back home. And because they both were the same way, they let me be it. And now looking back in life, I think I was very, very lucky to have two parents like this that let me explore myself. And and I think then I had to repeat this class because of my English. I didn't pass in the gymnasium, so I went to America for 1 year when I was 11, 12. I missed my grandparents, and then lived in New York City and got to know a different school system and this melting pot of people. Yeah, it was a little different. It was not the Wisconsin America, but still I got to see a little bit of the other world. and the way they think, Americans, or even all the people that left their countries to go abroad or to a new country and start brand new again. I think that at that time already it put seeds into myself. And wow. And then I didn't want to go back to Germany. I knew that suddenly. And so I looked to go a boarding school, and I didn't want to go in Germany. So I said, where else could I go? Didn't want to go to England. So I ended up in Switzerland. High in the mountains, in nature. So again, there I was submersed in nature. That's where I pulled back. So that happens often in my life. I go to a metropolitan city, a larger city, and then I'm more on the countryside again. And then I come out into the world. So it's like my Meilinish rhythm. And yeah, so then I think until college, and even college, I stayed there in Switzerland. And again, then I thought, I want to go to US and get to know my other side more. And then I went to the US to study veterinary medicine, and was also, almost 20 years I stayed there, and then came back about 10 years ago.
Nice. And where did you stay in the US?
I lived a little bit in Maryland, University of Maryland. I was a Terp. And then I switched fields and went into landscape architecture. And then for that, I went to Athens, Georgia, because they had a very good school with a ecological and historical preservation background. That's how I went there, and stayed there even after college, after my master's in Atlanta, because there was the shortest way to get a state exam. You only had to work a year and a half to then. And that's where I met a German husband, my man, married. And then when my son was born, came back about 10 years now. Time flies, yeah.
Wow, amazing. And but your husband is German, and you brought him back to Germany. I brought him
back. Yeah, he wanted to come back. Yeah.
Interesting. But now you're living in Germany and you want to stay here as well.
Yes, it took me a while. It was interesting also there. I had to get used to Germany again. I was, because most of my adult life, I had then been 20 years in the US. I left with 21. And the moment though, which was really interesting, I got adjusted. That's when I was looking again to travel. Then I had a big spur where I needed to go back and forth to bring the US. And it's the people, it's the different way of thinking, also the historical thinking, but also the land. I've learned through that I need this other land on a regular basis. And then it was not so much Atlanta area, which is very green, lush. There it was where you open spiritually. There's a granite outcrop for a long time. There was the crystalline energy right there. So, but now it was more for me on the West Coast, the softness of the landscape. It's something different. Mm-hmm. And so I needed this bridging. And then once I had that again, then there was a deeper level of understanding how to get in Germany again. Suddenly that was gone. I had fed myself. I had all the nutrients within me again that I needed. And now then I can sort of explore more and more the beautiful sites here in Germany that are so close and very ancient and important for me.
Interesting. I mean, because every place on this planet has, energetic points, but probably, and maybe because of your cultural mix, you needed, the energies of both. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And what are you doing now? Because I mean, I know you don't work as a landscape architect.
Yeah. Now I bring in the landscape as metaphors. I'm still very connected to nature and birds and animals, cats. But now it's just healing, supporting people to create unending momentum, to embody, so they can embody themselves. So that is my specialty, that they don't wobble. Nice. So I support them and bring back the memory and what they're already doing. to acknowledge what power and grandness is within people, and the beauty. As the beauty is, and then it's easy because nature is beautiful. And often we have forgotten, or we've been untold, or we feel taken away out of nature like a separate something, like a statue, and bringing it, reconnecting it to all. So that's what I love to do.
It's very beautiful. How would you say, were you influenced by the different cultures of your dad? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in your case, it's not only, because I mean, you grew up in Western Germany, but you had a mother from Eastern Germany that actually grew up in Eastern Germany. And then you have a dad from the US. So how was their, but your dad also has German roots, right? You said.
Yeah. I think my great-great-grandpa left 100 years before I was born. He arrived in the US, 1860.
That's amazing. That's like almost, three generations basically, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say, though, did those cultures influence you and maybe made you different to the Western German where you grew up?
Okay, you asked me at the beginning also about my name. So many things influenced me because I went looking. So I needed to figure out for myself what I wanted to be influenced in. Yeah, so yes, so for sure at the beginning there was strong influence. There was the Cold War. I remember lying in bed and my parents thinking, what will we do when, the Russians walk in? And it was, so then the fear, but always of my parents. And I said, we don't need that. It's not good. I always felt I don't need that. So and I learned that I'm so positive and that these fears, they're not important for me, that I always look behind and already look for the next the next thing. And in my name, which is Chinese, Meilin, or Meilin, or however you want to write it, I think my mom chose that out of a book. It's different for you, Mei. She read a book, and there was a similar, there was a Chinese woman and a man from a different country, and they named their child Meilin. So she named her this way. And at that time, she was not allowed to separate like Mei and Lin. So she had to write it together.
Because my name is like that.
Yeah. And at the beginning, I didn't like it so much because my Ehlke or the Ehlke, it's almost like a first name in German, Ehlke, gell? And so they thought always last name was my first name. And I remember that time, one day I'll get a German man, so I'll have a German name. At least you know what my last name is. Now I think different, right? But it's a child. But I went on searching what the name means. So I immersed myself really quickly in the Chinese culture, the Asian culture, the Japanese. I read a lot. And then my parents loved to eat. We at that time already, we ate a lot, traveled. And also my parents are very open. They invited everyone. Didn't matter what culture they were from, what social level. I remember sitting on tables with someone from, my mom invited the garbage guys inside, right? Or it doesn't matter. They never cared. They invited always in. So I always got to experience respect for human beings. And that everyone has something fascinating to share. And also both of my parents, they love to travel and see the world. I think that's why there was this drive to leave home. I think it's innate, it's within us. And I know, May, you it's in us. And to the name, and I have never told you that story, but in Atlanta then, what was the name? At the dentist, I remember someone was a Chinese dentist. Oh, Meilin, it's like a fruit, like a cherry, but has a soft center and a hard shell. Oh, I thought, yeah, that's me. And then when I lived in America, there was a fun conversation at the party. One guy said, "Oh, your name is Meilin, and you're a landscape architect. Meilin, I can't remember anymore, has to do something with landscape, and we beauty, and you live here in a landscape, but for us, we call America land, the beautiful land, or something. I can't remember so much." So, and I said, oh, it clicked all together. And then I understood that really my name formed me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe if we take the time to go delve deep in what does our names bring us or help us to recognize within us, it's fun. And then we recognize also a little bit of ourselves, and we can speak about it then different, and we start living that part of us. At that time I never thought I would speak about beauty so often. But it's in me.
Yeah. I like it. It's interesting. Yeah. Because on the other, also, like, names form a certain way of energy, right? Whenever, I mean, on one hand the name itself, but then also the voice, like the sound we make when we say that name, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Interesting. But I like one thing, that basically having parents that already migrated themselves, that it's actually also become part of you as well.
Yes. Yes. Even religion, I think, remember, they're both in a way Lutherans, if you think about it. But they didn't so believe in it. And my mom is a nature woman, yeah, and my father is more a thought guy, always in the future. And now I know, after being a channel, I said, oh, my dad, he's a prophet, and my mom is more the spiritual, earthy woman, always outdoors, yeah. So that I have both parts. And then I see these beautiful twists that arise. And then I'm like connector between them. And then it's also in my name, the Ehlke or Meilin, you can say Mei, we are in line, energy, the line.
Yeah.
Elohim and key, and I got the key energy. So it's again there. I'm always connecting you to source, to your body, cross-connection cultures, right? And even there, I look at the beautiful things, and I look behind. I don't look at just what other people say, because I remember you had a questionnaire for me to fill out. There was a question, were you ashamed? And I had to think about it. Was I ashamed to be a German, to be an American? So I think once quickly in Switzerland, when the children make fun, that we're German, but after 2 minutes I thought, oh, I have nothing to do with that. It's not my life. I'm here now, right now, in the moment. And then never again. And also, the Americans, there was nice to be German and to have even a German accent. I had suddenly with 12 a German accent. Before I didn't have one, and my brother doesn't have an accent. So you can.
That's so interesting, really.
Yeah, I must have spoken more German then suddenly when my vocal cords stopped. And my brother was speaking more both languages at that time. Interesting. Yeah, but also then here, when people say always these bad things about America, I said, yeah, but do you know the people all around the world are the same. We all want to be loved. We want to find a partner. We love our children. And I got to always see that really quick. And my parents, we traveled, they took us always along. And right then and there, after 2 seconds, you look at people. It doesn't matter how they look like, or maybe they have different clothes on, or the body language is different, but the basics are the same. And I noticed that as a child, and I walk always around with a big smile, and I've learned quick, people smile back. So I never had, even New York, everyone was all afraid, they're all like this. I said, no, because I walk around with a smile and invite people to smile and conversation. And that's what I've learned. I used my culture, and it's people want to talk about it. They want to know difference. They're curious. We have to be open to and take the time. And if we have a moment and take a moment to answer the questions, and sometimes they don't have the right vocabulary, but the desire to get someone to know is always there because they want to understand, because deep inside us, we all want to connect and we want to understand each other even better.
And I think
so I've learned that as well.
What we carry out as mixys, right? Because we are so visibly mixed, we can actually build, like you said earlier, build the bridges between all of them.
Yeah.
Because we understand the different languages. And I'm not talking about language, but, you know, like I understand how that culture works, or, you know, and then I know, okay, so because they are that way, you know, if I explain them that way, then they'll understand the other side as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like communicate.
And, you know, people want to group together. And I think they want to belong. And so all over life, that you have groups of people. Yeah, like my dad told from his small town, he said, you know, we didn't have many people from different countries. So it was more separated.
Meilin?
It's truth. Yeah.
We just lost you. The connection was a little bit bad. You said we were separated?
Yeah, they were separated in the middle of the town. You had the Catholic side and the Protestant side. And you wouldn't even be intermixed, and he didn't like that. So that's why he left. He didn't feel that was right, and he didn't decided not to be part of it. And I think this is really important. We have a choice to be part of it or not. Yeah, even when I lived in America, I was part, you can go like this, say, I don't want anything to do with Americans. I'm just here to study. I said, no, what is here to learn? What is for me to show? What can they understand better about me? And this is important, that there is this discourse and that you're open for it if you desire. For me, it was always, for me, I should say, it was important.
Yeah, because instead of looking at our differences, we're actually looking at what connects us, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then you can talk for hours. If you think about it, if you look for differences, you suddenly come really quick at, don't go over a border, or, you know, you put up these shields, and suddenly you just sit there and I want to not be in this situation anymore. But if you open up and you take away these shields, these walls, and suddenly there is an exchange of wisdom, and you can learn so much.
That's so beautiful. How do you do it with your son? Like, how do you? Because I mean, do you feel that he's growing up very German, or do you feel that he's? Because I know you also take him on travels, right?
Yeah. So he's born over in Atlanta, and we moved back here when we're 2.5. When he was 2.5. And it was a little barrier, language barrier at the beginning. But he's very sensitive, so he notices how different people are. So we came to Munich, and I remember after I had this beautiful experience as a pregnant woman, or a woman with a small child, how helpful everyone everywhere was. I mean, everyone would brought to the car, they put you in the line, grocery shopping in front. When your baby was maybe screaming, they would try to talk to it. You know, they're more open, they speak much more really quick to people. And I had missed that. And then here everything was so rich, and then I can understand, you know, these wars we had for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You start walking around like this. It's inbred in a way. the energies is there. But it's time to break those, because I said that's past. We have to consciously say, no, I don't want. I want to take off this blindfold, these, like the horses have, and want to take those off, and so I can see. So my son, I remember, I traveled with, I think, 8 weeks the first time. He's interested also in people and sees the world, the beauty of the world. And I remember when I took him, he was 10, 11, to the US, and he said, oh, Mama, they're all laughing and they're having fun. So I noticed that he experienced being more loose because people around him were smiling more, even on a big airport, where you have lines and lines. I said, oh, Mama, they're so nice. They let you go here, and they open the sites and they help and very supportive. And again, you have people from around the world in one airport, and it functions. So it is the determination, it's the idea that it will function. If we come in with an idea it's going to work, it is going to work. If we come with an idea it's not going to work, often it doesn't work, unless you have someone who overrides it and says it's going to work. Yeah. And so he noticed that, and how more relaxed, how much more they were laughing. So the German a little bit more serious. Yeah, sometimes I think it is the southern cultures of Europe, or the other world, they're more looser, or in the north, they're more family oriented. And I think it's going to come back, that we're going to experience that again here also in Germany. But it's still a little hard.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, not wanting to stereotype, but we still have certain stereotypes, and I think that the good thing, or the how do you say, like, our jobs, especially as mixys, is to to show them that even though we have those stereotypes, those stereotypes also show us the good sides of everybody. Like, we have the stereotype of the like in the US, everywhere you go, you have people smiling at you, and that's amazing, that's beautiful, and that's something you want to embrace. And maybe you don't have that as the stereotype in Germany, but you also have the stereotype about the correctness of the German people, like they're always on time, whenever they have a project, they really think it through from the beginning to the end.
Yes.
There's, and it, you can make it negative, like the same. You can make the smiling people in the US also negative, like, yeah, it's, it's so superficial or whatever. Yeah, but I imagine that a lot of the people that smile at me don't do it because, they're just trying to be superficial. I think some of them actually smile because they like smiling and they like being in a good mood and, bringing that to the people. And it's the same thing in Germany. There's so many that might be, like very the typical squarehead, but on the other hand, that also gives them the power to actually be able to analyze things on a very deep level that others can't.
Yeah, that goes back that we're so different, and you're right. So maybe I'm more the outspoken one. Not that I'm a big extrovert. I go in and out. But we also need people with other gifts and different talents. You're exactly right. Yes.
Exactly, and
otherwise it's boring that, too.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying, and I think when you embrace that, and that's why I was also asking about your mom, also sort of being of a little bit different culture, because that's also something that we sometimes miss. Even within a country, we can have so many different cultures. Because, you see the difference between South Germany and North Germany. And it's almost the same with Eastern and Western Germany, right? And just look in the US, how the East Coast and the West Coast, how different they are. It's almost like you're traveling into a different country.
Yes. Yeah, and it's the language. Yeah, in Germany especially, we speak all these different dialects. And for a long time, they wanted to erase them. But now people are recognizing, no, this gives us our character. This gives us our uniqueness. And I'm happy about that we can speak. I have a German that's totally mixed, yeah, with my mom, the Saxon, Sächsisch, and then Hessisch, and I don't know, wherever I lived in Switzerland, brought those languages in. And I speak it totally mixed. And this is also important, I think, that we don't say, oh, now I'm in Hannover, now I have to speak their way, and I have to, yeah, then we cannot be us. So I'm this mutt of all different life experiences. But these life experiences made who I am. And so if also the language, the different languages has been part. So I have German words in my English, and I have English words in my German, and I dream English, but I speak most of my life German. Yeah, and so it's a mix, and this is so important that we say, yes, I am this way, and leave also the judgment away. Maybe if someone just has lived in their area, to say, yes, that's what they decided. They were here because they loved it. And we can see that we do what we love and cherish what the others love.
Would you say that you always knew who you were? Who you wanted to be in this mix of things around you?
Now, I had one talent. I always do what I want to do.
That's amazing. That's really good.
Yeah, but thinking I was always doing then the right thing, that's a different story. Because you think backwards. Looking back now, it was all like a perfect, the lineup, because all these experiences I had, even switching degrees so often, right? I studied in Switzerland in business, went over to the US to study veterinary medicine, then I moved into landscape architecture. Now, and even there I wrote about cats. Yeah, so you'd see, and now I'm an entrepreneur, spiritual entrepreneur in a way. I need all of these things together. Not to talk more about inner landscapes, but also how we submerge with the landscape. And, so if you look back, we needed everything we had. It's part of our journey that we're already all living on our purpose. It doesn't fit maybe sometimes in what is supposed to be our purpose. Yeah, now a few years ago, I really took my time to think, what is my purpose? Absolute beauty. That's the principle I bring onto this earth. And then it went, da-da, no wonder A, B, C, D, then it's easier. But so I've lived it already. And I think, May, you too, and everyone, we're doing it already. And there comes the moment where we recognize, oh, Mensch. And the younger generation sees it much earlier already because they don't have the structures we grew up with, or you grew up with. They're already living much their purpose. They don't even worry about purpose. They don't need the word purpose. They live themselves.
I love that, because especially for our generation, it's embracing the path that we were on, right? Because even though, and that's what I always say, because you sometimes get the question like, would you change anything? Would you make anything different? And I think it's important to live a life where you don't feel like you should have done something different, because like for me, I sometimes, play around saying, yeah, I got stuck 20 years in Germany, but I needed that because I needed that to find myself, which is, again, that's my, I needed to find myself so that now I can go out and say, hey, I can help you find yourself, even though you have all those, influences around you. And it's beautiful to embrace all that. So thank you very much for that, because it is so important. But did you always know that you were guided for yourself?
No. If I think, I can't remember so much when I was little. Now my mom starts telling me a lot of things that I've done when I was little. But there was maybe a phase, was I guided? I was guided by believing I was positive So maybe in a way, yes, I just didn't have the vocabulary.
Beautiful.
And even there were deep things. I remember my dad asked me, Meilin, did you ever think about killing yourself? And I thought,
Wait, who asked that?
My dad, when we were a teenager, and there's this time at 6, end of a teenager, you get a depression. And he just asked me this out of the blue. And maybe because, I have cerebral palsy, I walk a little different. Maybe he thought I would worry about it now that I become more of a woman and how people would look at me. That was his way of, asking. And then I had to think about that. And I said, no, maybe sometimes I don't, like when people looked at me the way after I walked. But even then, a friend said, Meilin, they don't look at how you walk. They always look in your face. Didn't you not notice? And I said, yeah, you're right. That's because you're always smiling. And I said, so, and that took that away. And I thought, no, because I met beautiful people that very, they wanted to have deep relationships, that wanted to know me. So that's what I learned really quickly in a way, that people that want to hung out with me, they were really interested in me.
That's beautiful.
That was also something beautiful.
Would you say that you ever felt discriminated for any part of you, like on cultural side or maybe also on the physical side?
Your physical sides, I can remember maybe in elementary school, 4th grade, maybe I wasn't always picked first on the sports team. Yeah, but later in life, I was picked too first. So maybe then I was maybe a little sad that I couldn't run as fast or something like that. But now.
But you never felt discriminated or anything?
Yeah, but this is, I think every child, if you've been in elementary school, you think that, because you have cliques, where you hang together with friends. But really discriminated, no. Because if I come into groups where you feel they discriminate, I just don't hang out with them. I move out of them. I always knew where not to be.
I think that's amazing, because I don't think everybody comes with that gene, like knowing to separate yourself. Because I think that shows that you are very self-aware, and you're also very strong in your own, in your own power. Mm-hmm. Which is beautiful. Like, what would you recommend other people so that they can, always be in their power?
If you go and look at it, let's say you're also multicultural, and to understand, first of all, what your roots are. Mm-hmm. And to see the beauty of the roots. And there maybe you have parents that had to run away and had to start over, or maybe it's out of family or out of politics or whatever the drive was. But to also take a look at first at your parents. Why did they leave? And you can do that when you're already young, so you don't have to wait until you're older. It becomes easier because you have your own experiences and you understand it a little bit. But to take the time, what are the roots and what is the beauty? Our history doesn't often write enough about many cultures in this world. So it's a little more tedious to find out a little bit. But trust your feeling and ask whoever you can about stories, to take the time to sit down and ask stories of their life. I was maybe lucky, my grandmother and mom, they would talk about their stories. That's how they digested their history and their trauma. And then when my mom helped others to escape too. And then I heard their stories. So I got to hear something different. And I did the same in America, and how hard it was, and why did they leave, and where did they come from? Mm-hmm. And it helps us to recognize ourselves on a deeper level. And because there is not a bad country and a better country and a super country and or culture. As we started out at the beginning, we want the same. We want a partner, maybe want family or children or not, but we have all the drive to live ourselves and to show who we are to anyone who loves to listen, and to do that. But look at where your roots are, and maybe travel there and understand them, take the time to learn about them. And maybe you don't speak the language anymore of your culture, or it's a lot of parents, I remember in the US, when they came from Cuba, the parents wouldn't speak Spanish anymore. They thought that was the best. So don't even be mad, but they made a decision with the knowledge they had and that they thought was the best at the moment. We can't blame your parent for not speaking Spanish anymore now that you have a bad grade, So say, oh, okay, they thought that was best. I can now still learn Spanish or go back to Cuba or, learn more about that culture. Yeah, so take the time to learn more and to travel and to feel it with your whole body and the land, because the land gives us codes. There's a reason why you came together and why your parents came together and why you were created and why you're here now. Go look for it, and the land gives you a lot of those answers. Connecting to the land, connecting to the history and knowing, and I think this will change a lot, I think, over the next decade. Now that we don't even go after DNA, but more looking at our proteins, we're learning in the world there was so much more movement. There was not such segregation. People from all around the world lived in all the different spots. And I mean, tens and tens of thousands of years ago. Yeah, so to see, there was always movement. There was mixed cultures. And you go and travel and experience different areas, different people, different ways of thinking, thought patterns.
And like you say, by opening up to those things, we could actually find ourselves even in a more deeper way, right?
Yeah, because you'll be surprised. It's like you have a whole key set, these, when you leave. And you open one, maybe you open the big ones first. But then there are also the small ones where you have to find a key here and there. And it's a rusty one. And maybe you don't want to touch it. You have to clean it first. It takes time. But go on that adventure and say, we're so much, we have so many facets, and I need to ourselves, we have to find all our facets, not just one facet. And often we're trained to live and show only one of our facets, one of our strengths, but we all have so many different ones, and that makes us unique.
Yeah, and I find that so beautiful. And that's what I'm saying, because in the end, everybody's mixed, right? Everybody.
Yes.
And that's why I find it, but I think the most important part is for us to be able to look through that, right? To not define ourselves just by the cultures, because in the end, I think what we want to do is find connection through the values that we have, that we share, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's not our eye color or anything, and we all have organs, same ones. And and then also I often ask the questions, why is someone else afraid? So why am I amongst people that are afraid of another culture? To take also those moments and say, okay, why are they afraid? What is not being understood? Often it's because something is not fully understood, or the time has not been taken really to unravel it. And where does it come from? And then the fear dissolves. And often I think people do not have, if they ask questions about you, don't go back like this and say, oh, they're curious, but maybe they don't have the right words, or they come with the wrong sentence. It's a sentence maybe they've always heard in their environment. To look behind that, so when they say something, is it said deeply with the heart, or is it just a start so they can unravel? Because ask yourself, why are you meeting this person? There's always a reason why we meet a person. because there's an exchange going to happen, and there's love is to be extended. So they can unravel, show more of them. In that moment, they can understand more of you. You understand more of them, and you understand more of yourself.
I was going to say that exactly, because by having someone that shows me something that triggers inside of me, I'm also learning about my triggers, right? And what's happening in there.
Mm-hmm. And again, I would not always say the triggers. We use that a lot, mirrors, triggers, but what is the beautiful thing?
Yeah.
What are the beautiful parts? We're so trained to look at, oh my God, what is wrong? So we're also trained to see what's wrong in the other person. So then what is wrong with my culture? What is wrong with the other culture?
True, yeah.
What is with my country I live in the city, and what is with the other city? And, and it goes really quick, and we can spin it off this way. So I invite you to spin it the other way.
And start looking at what we have to get, what things we have in common.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And that actually also sums everything up with the whole, how do you say, refugee topic or issues that we're having in Germany right now. Because in the end, how many Germans have been refugees themselves generations before?
Yeah.
And how many migrated people we have right now here in Germany that are against the refugees, is like, because they're afraid that, they have their own fears as well.
Yeah, and it's only at the beginning, yeah, and still there is a balance. And if you go back to a source, we're beings that are we're beings that move. Yeah. A human being is a mover. We are stagnant, and we're putting into borders. And really, there shouldn't be any borders. We should be able to walk around, and travel where but because we're made stationary, and this is not very normal, it feels you're more caught, and you can't also expand then big enough. So maybe, if you look at the European Union, it's starting to dissolve. People are understanding. So then, it's always at the edges. If these borders, it comes together until you say, okay, now let's expand right there, and then exchange, and then it goes on, and it's like you always have to, it's like a rhythm. You go bigger and bigger, and it's often not a flow like this. It's like chuck, 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 chuck. Always a conscious decision to open up again.
And maybe it's happening more and more, because if I look at the Latin American history, Simón Bolívar was one guy that wanted to combine for several countries. He never managed to do it, but then we had the United States that actually managed to combine different cultures as well, because it's not just uniting the states, but it was actually uniting people from France, from Great Britain, from Germany, from Ireland, from Spain, from all over the European countries, uniting them, including also the Native Americans that were there, uniting them under a big roof, right? And now with more, with the whole migration that they have, how many Chinese and Asian people are in the States, and how many Latinos are still migrating there. So it's always a movement, and it's the same thing, like you said, like with Europe. So maybe we will see in the future more countries like that combine more cultures, right?
Yeah, and if you look back, if you zoom out in a way, and you look at the last decades, how many things have changed already. Yeah, how did we treat each other? Yeah. In the 50s, 60s, then a woman wasn't worth anything, a child wasn't worth anything. It didn't matter. And how did we treat other cultures, and how it's changing already, and how we view an experience. So I see already so many things are dissolving, and the mindset, and the other ones too. It will, because people go and find their own rhythm, and after a while you've experienced, you were speaking about the immigration, after a while, oh, this person isn't really, why is he here or she's here? Yeah, and say, oh, it's really not so bad. There's so many people that take them into their families, right? Took so many into their families and supported them as well. But in the newspaper, you always hear about the other side. There's so many beautiful stories that are spoken all about, and it's part of us. And I think this, what you're doing with this podcast, is so beautiful, showing it a different way. What is possible, because we are living examples.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed.
True. Our purpose.
Yeah.
Why we landed on this planet being mixys.
Yeah.
I mean visible mixys, because I think, like I said earlier, I think we're all mixy somehow.
Yeah, we're all mixes, and then if you go and say, okay, we the cosmic mix in us as well, and then again we say, oh, I'm even more than what I think I am. Yes, I'm grand, I'm huge. Expand even further. I understand the universe and anything beyond that. Yeah, and suddenly we're not separate, and even with aliens, we don't have to be afraid anymore. And how are we supposed to be afraid all the time of them? Still,
predator, an alien coming down to Earth.
Yeah, and implants and all this stuff. Yeah, it's always the same thing. If you think about it, it's the same that you have in a micro, and you move out and out, and you try to again create fear, but dissolve fear. I invite everyone to dissolve fear.
Yeah, because that also gives us more lightness in our life.
Yeah. Gives it a spring and celebratory, a song. It gives us a song and so much more fun and excitement, adventure.
I love that. I love the word of celebratory, because I think that's what we should do. We should celebrate who we are, who all the people that were behind us, before us, that created the space for us to be born into, and to have those treasures within us that we carry, and to celebrate that, actually.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Oh, Meilin, that was so awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me to speak to you and your brilliant audience.
I'm going to put all your links under the video or in the show notes of the podcast, so that everybody can find you if they want to find you. Because I know, how would you describe what you're doing right now? You said earlier you're a spiritual entrepreneur, but basically what I find, or what I've seen, you actually really support people to come into their power as well, right?
Yeah. To see their grandness and their beauty. And to embody their wisdom. You have to embody that you walk different. It's this different stance you get. And to know that you can create, that you're an unending being, and you can create unendingly. You don't have to tighten up, that you can just be open and wide and loose and fun. That's what I bring people.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Meilin, for being here, for sharing your wonderful energy with us.
Thank you, May.
In this episode. And thank you for being my starseed sister. And
twinkle, twinkle, little star.
And supporting so many other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you very much to our listeners. All the links are below or in the show notes for you to find Meilin if you want to dive more into that or receive more of her support in your path. And thank you very much for listening. And Sebas, have a nice time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.